scary things can happen anywhere. Whether in a hospital, at home, or even on a school bus. Yes, a fair share of scary things have also happened on a school bus. But how terrifying can it really get? Let's find out. Today, we will look at some of the most disturbing things that have happened inside school buses. Hijacked. There are a lot of things that can happen on a school bus. I mean, they are carrying teenagers who are always active. But hijacking is one of the most disturbing things that can happen to a school bus. Imagine being a parent and hearing on the news that the school bus that brings your child home has been hijacked by a man who has a knife. What would you do? This was the case in Arkansas. Nicholas Miller, who was just 22 years old, demanded a woman to give him her car in Jacksonville. However, when the woman did not have one to give, Miller stopped pursuing the woman. Shortly after, he spotted a school bus that had stopped nearby. He immediately boarded the bus and took control of the bus, which had 11 elementary school students on board. When the woman noticed this, she immediately called the police to inform them of what had happened. When the police eventually tracked the school bus in question, they began their pursuit. As you can see in this video, which was recorded by Kelsey Eggers using her cell phone, the bus was being pursued by about a dozen police cars, all of which had flashing lights. This was down a 2-lane road. The pursuit lasted for about 10 miles when eventually the police managed to convince the suspect to stop the bus. Once he stopped, he was taken into custody. Miller was later found to be suffering from psychological trauma or paranoia, since he claimed that he hijacked the bus because he was being chased. Even though no one on the bus was hurt, those kids will never recover. Angry driver. Let's face it, driving a school bus seems pretty hectic and stressful as ever. Imagine dealing with kids in their teenage years screaming and shouting all over the bus. And given that these are kids, there is nothing you can do about it but drive them and hope you drop them off real quick. But that's not the case for this driver. In 2005, a video surfaced that showed a school bus driver telling the kids on board to face forward. Apparently, some of the boys did not really listen. The bus driver must have snapped because shortly after, he is heard telling one of the boys at the front to turn around. However, what caught most people by surprise was the language that he used. This is certainly not the language to use with kids. When the driver yelled vulgar language, one of the boys in the back shouted, "Watch your mouth." This is where the driver seems to have had enough. He called a deputy from Cleveland Circle but never really waited for the deputy to arrive. Instead, the driver moves to the back of the bus when one of the boys curses at him. Shortly after what seemed like an argument, the driver is seen manhandling the kid, pushing him into a seat and then down the aisle. When this is happening, another boy screams, "Get off him." The driver then quickly returns to the front of the bus, where the same boy confronts him again. The boy even shoves the driver. This is the end of the video, and there's no more information about what followed after this incident. But in all of this, one thing is for sure. No matter what the boys did, this was no way to deal with it as a driver. Passed out. Among the scariest things that can happen on a school bus, the driver passing out has got to be one of the most spine-chilling. But then, having a sharp kid aboard the bus seems to pay off. Jeremy Witchkit, a middle schooler, was once labeled as a hero for taking charge of the entire school bus when the driver passed out while driving. Before the driver fully passed out, he tried warning the students aboard the bus by waving his arms. He could not breathe, and the bus started swerving when he eventually became unconscious. As seen in the video, the 7th grader quickly reacted and took the wheel. He was then able to steer the bus back to safety, keeping the bus on the road. By doing this, he was able to save 15 other fellow students who were aboard the bus by keeping them free from harm. When the bus finally stopped at the side of the road, Jeremy took the keys out of the ignition. By this time, the police had already been notified of the school bus when it had swerved across the road. So when the bus came to a stop, they walked up to the bus only to find that it was Jeremy who had stopped the bus near their destination school. When the bus stopped, John McCroson, a school staff member, was driving past. He immediately managed to administer CPR to the bus driver, who had suffered from a heart-related problem. And even though everyone termed Jeremy the hero of the day, Jeremy himself admitted that everything happened so quickly, and he was just acting on instinct. But then again, a hero is still a hero. And if it were not for his quick thinking, some of those students would have lost their lives. The importance of seatbelts. If you are not one to put on the seatbelt anytime you're in a car, this might change your perspective. When 73-year-old bus driver Jack Thomas of Indianapolis was driving back to school after dropping off all the students, he took a turn that turned out to be a little too curvy to take. Since he had no seatbelt on, he found himself flying out of the driver's seat. Luckily, there were no kids on board the bus when this happened. Thomas quickly loses control of the large vehicle, and from the video, we can see that he hangs onto the steering wheel for dear life when he falls off his seat. The bus eventually swerved and plowed through a fence, into trees, and knocked into a playset. At last, the bus slams into a garage while the bus driver relinquishes the wheel and falls down the steps of the bus. Even though no one was injured, Thomas was cited for not following the seatbelt law. Kicked off the bus. We have already established that being a school bus driver is quite stressful. However, even though some bus drivers are threatening, this one took it quite too far. When a 13-year-old student started acting out on the bus, the driver slammed on the brakes, swung open the door, and threw the kid's backpack outside, kicking him off the bus. Eventually, the boy had to walk home for 10 blocks. The whole scene was recorded by a student on his phone. From the footage, you can see that there was an angry exchange between the bus driver and the boy in question. You can also see that some of the kids were shouting in defense of the boy, screaming, "You can't do that!" There was yet another video that the bus driver recorded, and it was of great help in serving as his defense. The kids struck another child on the other side of the aisle and threatened the bus driver. In addition, another 1-year-old had smacked the driver in the head with his hockey bag, knocking his glasses off as he disembarked. This was a very heated incident and received both support and anger from parents. Some said that the driver had done what he needed to do, while others thought there was no justification for kicking the student off the bus. Eventually, the driver was removed by Cunningham Transport Ltd. From the division's routes, but the driver was never fired. Almost immediately, a bus monitor was placed on this route, while the 2 boys in question were suspended from riding the bus for a week. What are your thoughts on this? Was the bus driver in the wrong here, or was he justified in doing that? Let us know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.